Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there tonight, and more importantly, staying safe with all the crazy weather that we have ongoing right now. We have a blizzard in areas of the country. We have ongoing severe weather going on right now, and this will continue to be going on over the next several hours into the overnight hours, all the way into our Tuesday, where we will have a separate severe weather threat for areas of the southeast. We're going to talk about that. And of course, I know that this is kind of live right now. By the time some of you folks watch this, the severe weather might be right on top of your area. So there's a lot of great people to go live on YouTube. I'm not just at a place internet wise where I can go live, but I know there's a lot of people that do a great job, whether they're storm chasing or just giving you live information about what's going on. So I definitely advise you guys to pay attention to them, especially as we get into the overnight hours. But of course, just like we always do on this channel, we're going to keep you guys ahead of the system. We're going to give you updated information on this winter storm ongoing and really cranking up across portions of the Midwest. Like I said, we'll give you an update on the severe weather for tomorrow. We'll talk about the Northeast as far as this system moving in for your Tuesday into your Tuesday night. We'll talk about winds. We'll talk about rain. We'll talk about snow. We'll talk about all of it. And then we'll break down the storm that's immediately trailing it. That could bring similar impacts to what's going on right now. We could have another blizzard. We're definitely going to have a major winter storm for someone. Maybe a little bit further south, we're going to have another severe weather threat for Thursday and Friday. And then after that, we're going to have another storm system that day by day, confidence continues to increase, is going to happen. And this could be a winter storm for areas much further south. I'm talking about maybe areas of the Mid-South. We still need to fine tune that, and we will, but we could be staring this down maybe this time next week. So we got a lot to talk about. Then we'll talk about the Arctic air mass right at the end of the video. We are going to have an Arctic outbreak across the country. How far east does it get? Those are still question marks, so we'll talk about it all in this video. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling tonight. As you can tell on the radar, there's a lot going on. Some of the snow up here might not be hitting the ground. Let me know what you're seeing out there. Of course, by the time I can read the comments, it'll be tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, so it'll be totally different. But I always love to hear you guys' updates, so definitely let me know what you're seeing, how much snow you got, whatever you got going on. As you can tell, a lot of the yellows, the oranges, the reds down here for the deep south. We have ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings. As of right now, as of 6:50 Eastern time, there's no tornado warnings, but by the time you folks watch this, that'll be a different story, I really think, unfortunately. I've seen some crazy video out of western Kansas, around the Dodge City area. I mean, it is an all-out blizzard on the backside of this low, all the way down to the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, it looks like one of those blizzards you see in a movie or something. I don't know how to explain it, but it's an all-out blizzard back here in Kansas right now for sure. A lot of heavy rain in between. A little bit of a mixed precipitation I've been seeing reports of, like in southern Missouri, northern Arkansas throughout the day. But this is what's going on right now. This is all heading east. They've canceled schools across the southeast, early dismissals, maybe a late start. They should just cancel them. But I know my state here in South Carolina, they pretty much canceled state just about across the board. I know at least here in the Midlands they have, so rightfully so. This is just a day where you need to stay home as we start to move into the eastern U.S. So what about watches, warnings, and advisories? Goodness, they're everywhere. Everything you see right here is a storm moving in. Blizzard warnings, winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories. Winter storm warnings are in the pink, blizzard warnings in the red. High wind warnings are in kind of the mustard color. The darker browns, that's high wind watches. You got the ongoing blizzard where the blizzard warnings are right now. I mean, this is extended all the way into several counties in Texas, folks. Winter storm warnings now go right through the Midwest, all the way to Milwaukee. It looks like Chicago just has a winter weather advisory right now. That could change, so stay tuned for later updates. Green Bay, winter storm warning, Des Moines, Rockford, all of northern Missouri. I think Kansas City now has a winter storm warning. I saw a crazy video earlier this afternoon of just heavy, wet snow falling. And then everybody in the south at least has some kind of wind alert. Wind advisories. You got multiple tornado watches ongoing right now. Flood watches that's just riding up the eastern U.S. You got high wind warnings on the coastal sections of the Carolinas, high wind warnings riding the spine of the Appalachian Mountains, high wind warnings along the Gulf coastline. Man, there is a lot going on. I mean, there is so much. There's winter storm watches up for Maine, Just so much going on, folks. So let's start off by giving you guys update information on this winter storm that continues to move in for the north central U.S. Take advantage of those timestamps. I try to do a really good job at sectioning out this video where you guys can skip ahead to certain areas. But we're going to start off with the winter weather side of this. Snow is overspreading Iowa, getting and starting to move into western and even northern sections of Illinois. It will continue. If you're confused about the time frame we're at, this is 9 p.m. Eastern time, so we're in Central time. So back whatever this hour shows up here, up 1 hour. But you keep going, folks, and we'll take it all the way to about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Look at this heavy snow beginning to fall in northern Indiana. I have a frame up for you folks talking about how much snow you could get with this initial round. I got a lot of viewers from Ohio. Ohio is going to be tricky. Let's just go on and take it straight to Tuesday morning, right? This is kind of breaking up into, 2 different rounds. Round 1, round 2. Round 2 could have a lot of winds with it. But round 1 will move into the Ohio Valley and areas of the Great Lakes region after midnight tonight. You could start out as very heavy snow in northern Ohio, northern Indiana. Could drop a quick few to maybe as much as several inches, depending on where you live. All of lower Michigan getting snow at this point, just about. Looks like the first round of snow moves through, let's back this up a little bit, moves through around midnight from Chicago till Milwaukee, Janesville, Madison, Rockford, all these areas. Starts to move into the Kalamazoo area, northern Indiana. Heavy snow beginning to move in, Lafayette. And then we start to get after midnight. This snow begins to push all the way into southern Ontario. And then here comes round number 2 sometime tomorrow, depending on your location. Snowing pretty heavily back here in Iowa, northern Missouri, northern Illinois. This could have a lot of winds with it because a secondary low develops. You got a 980 millibar low in the middle of Illinois. So this is going to be pumping some intense winds on the backside of this low. So I would not be surprised. Midday tomorrow, we have on and off blizzard conditions ongoing in Iowa, maybe even into Missouri. Not consistent, but at least on and off, I bet you. And then it's snowing really hard in southwest and southern sections of Wisconsin. And I think you'll switch potentially to some rain in Chicago because the low flies right over the city, basically. And all these areas that start out snow, like in, like lower Michigan, southern Michigan, northern Indiana, either it just stops snowing altogether or it just rains or you just don't get nothing. But it could just stay all snow in Milwaukee. Look, as we're getting into tomorrow afternoon, starts to snow very heavily in the UP of Michigan, snowing in all of Wisconsin, still snowing back here. And this is when St. Louis can get around the snow tomorrow evening, some gusty winds potentially with this. And then a clipper starts to ride in, adds in additional accumulations. But you go on and just keep this going. You'll be dealing with snow all the way through tomorrow night, all the way through Wednesday morning, and then maybe another little piece of energy flies through. Big time system, folks. Big time system. Let's go on and talk about some snowfall accumulation. So we're going to just talk about the Midwest and the Great Lakes region. We're going to kind of move past Nebraska. This is ongoing right now. So we're going to try to stay ahead of the storm, just like we always do in this video. Another several inches of snow expected in northern Missouri. Eastern Iowa. The storm's just cranking up for you folks. They're calling for as much as a foot to 16 inches of snow now in these areas. We'll zoom into this region. The southern half of Wisconsin, big snowstorm, anywhere from 8 to 14 inches. Kind of the same thing in the northern counties of Illinois. But Chicago, it's going to be hard. Lake Michigan is going to really influence your weather here. It's going to be interesting. Folks, if you live in Milwaukee or Chicago, and a lot of folks have told me, you guys are always so nice and polite up here. Let me know what the difference is between like 5 to 10 miles off the lake. I would love to know. Stuff like this fascinates me, but you can tell that this is going to, if you live close up to the lake, it's going to affect your snowfall totals, especially on the southwest end of Lake Michigan. You start to get into Michigan, just a quick 2 to 3 inches of snow here in northern Indiana, maybe the far northwest corner of Ohio. Detroit's good for 1 to 2 inches, maybe right off the dot. And then a pretty solid snowfall up here for the northern sections of lower Michigan. Then the UP of Michigan, the snowfall totals continue to increase. You're now up to a good 8 to 12 inch snowfall at minimum, I think, in these areas, except if you live in the kind of the western UP of Michigan into northern Wisconsin. Let's zoom into some of these areas. So National Weather Service graphic out of the Quad Cities region. They have an area circled, Peoria going for 2 to 6 inches, Sterling 8 to 12, Freeport 10 to 14. This is in Illinois. Dubuque 11 to 16. Quad Cities going for 11 to 15 inches. Iowa City 13 to 18 inches of snow. Memphis, Missouri 8 to 12 inches of snow. This is moving in now. Big storm moving in. And let's take a look at another area, Chicago. This is snow amounts between 6 a.m. tomorrow morning to 12 a.m. Wednesday. So, sharp snowfall gradient may result in big changes in expected snowfall forecast. They talk about this. Chicago right here, they're trying to keep you guys. It mainly rain. It's just so hard to believe. But that could be the case. But you go an hour or two west or northwest of the city, you could get 8 inches of snow. Look at these areas. It's just pretty wild how the lake is influencing this. Up to my folks in Milwaukee, they have a nice graphic in this, lower end amounts, talking about higher end amounts. But for now in Milwaukee, 4 to 8 inches of snow. Potential snow rain mix in the dotted white line because you're up against Lake Michigan. But you get away from Lake Michigan, you get into Janesville, 9 to 12 inches, Madison, 8 to 12. You start to get out here in like southwest Wisconsin. I think you're going to get widespread foot snowfall totals in this area. So pretty wild stuff. Nothing too crazy up here, but it's going to be a pretty big winter storm for you folks for, a winter that started off relatively quiet. So let's talk about the National Weather Service out of northern Indiana. I'm going to get some water. All right, there we go. Northern sections of Indiana, a quick 1 to 3 inches of snow in general. Fort Wayne, 1 to 2 inches of snow, but this entire area will switch to rain. And in fact, it just might stop doing anything altogether. And it says it right here. A 2 to 3 hour period of 1 inch per hour snow rates expected to move from the southwest to the northeast between 3 a.m. tonight to 6 a.m. Tomorrow morning. So I think you're going to get a quick burst of snow. If you're a big snow fan, you live in this area, northwest Ohio, northern Indiana, maybe even central Indiana, and then lower Michigan. And if you really want to see some heavy kind of just cotton ball snow, be up in the wee hours in the morning, and I think you'll see it. Getting up here to the National Weather Service in like the northern Michigan area, Gaylord, 4 inches of snow. They have two different graphics. This is from Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So 3 to 4 inches, and then this is additional snow from the second push of moisture. So you got to have to add these two areas together, freeze the screen if you need to. All right. So that's probably one of the last really big updates on this storm system. Folks, I have a feeling we'll be talking about all these same areas again because there's another winter storm right on the way, and we'll talk about that in a separate segment of the video. Severe weather threat tonight. So I guess I do have portions of Southeast Texas chopped off just because this is ongoing right now for Southeast Texas. We're really just going to zoom in on Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama here. So this is still technically the day 1 category outlook. This goes from right now through Tuesday morning. We have an enhanced risk. As of right now, it's not uptrended to a moderate risk. And that might change. In fact, I'm going to do this a couple times on the fly. Has this went to a moderate risk? No, it has not. So, I might do that a couple times because something could update in the middle of the video. All right. Enhanced risk is a level 3 out of 5 in the orange area. Slight risk, a level 2 out of 5 in the yellow area. Marginal, level 1 out of 5. So what is this driven off of? You have a 10% risk of not only a tornado in the yellow area, but a significant tornado. You see the checker marks going through this? That means there's a hatched risk. So you have a 10% risk of a strong tornado, basically. Within 25 miles in a given location. If you are wondering what the Storm Prediction Center considers a strong tornado, it's an EF2 or higher, which, EF0, EF1 packs some strong winds too, but you get what I'm saying. There's a different criteria. So big threat with this. Hail threat, not that big of a deal tonight, but I'm sure some people will get hail. You look at the wind threat, nothing's really changed from this morning's video. Still in the red area, you have a 30% chance of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. But you also have a 10% chance, because it's a hatch, do you see the checker marks going through it, of seeing winds exceeding 65 knots or higher. And we are definitely going to see that somewhere. That's like hurricane force winds, which is pushing 75 miles per hour. This is a big deal. And in the yellow area, there's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Let's take a look at what the radar could look like in this area. So we're starting it off around, and let's make sure we got some timestamps up here. I know this is kind of hard to see on the screen. I can't really make it any bigger. But this is an Eastern time. So most of this is Central time. So back this up 1 hour, 6 p.m. So we're actually, kind of behind time here. So let's get this up to about 8 p.m. And the radar is looking pretty similar to this. Let's see what the radar is looking like out this area. This is the radar out of Mobile. The big line is back here. Okay, it's not seen on this because it's out of the radar sight, but we're already getting some nasty weather moving into the Gulfport region, heading towards the Mobile area. No tornado warning right now, but this is a pretty strong storm in this area right in here that already has that look to it. So let's just keep this going right here. So we move later into the night. Let's go all the way till about midnight tonight. A line of storms is beginning to form, but if you notice all these areas, these splotches of oranges and reds, nothing is really discrete. It's a very sloppy, convective look, but it doesn't matter because there's so much ingredients in place, especially in this area ahead of the storm, because this is kind of the front right in here. Anything behind this, the atmosphere immediately stabilizes. The severe weather threat's over. But anything in this really, I would even say just a dangerous kind of sector right in here. Anything can be spinning in this region, especially as we get into the overnight hours. Have a way to get alerts in this area. And I know this just looks everywhere, but there could be so many spin-ups in all this sloppy convection in southern Alabama. And folks, I can't say this enough. Even up here in northern Alabama, Tennessee, getting into Georgia, the winds, you're going to get heavy, heavy rain overnight. And the winds are going to be whipping up into the Cumberland Plateau, Tennessee, northern Alabama, northern Florida. Not northern Florida, northern Georgia. I'm good for mixing up a couple states in one video, every single video just about. But the winds are going to be whipping up here. But down here, this is when you're going to have your high-end tornado threat. And to keep this going, and at this point, you're about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, the sector begins to kind of clear out. And you got to watch all these storms in southern Alabama. Look at this line of storms moving through Mobile. And so you got two real big things going on here. You got what we call the prefrontal storms, the pre-squall line storms, anything that develops out ahead of this main line right here. These, if you get any kind of clearing for these storms right in here to breathe, that is when you're going to have a higher tornado threat. So, you're sitting in this area just south of Montgomery, Dothan, down here to the Panhandle of Florida, Mobile, and to keep this going, and we get it all the way to, the sun's starting to, rise, 6, 7, 8 a.m., and this line of storms is really beginning to turn away here in the western Panhandle of Florida, and then in southeast Alabama, we have that 10% risk of a significant tornado down here. So, you keep this going, and Auburn's getting slammed right as we're waking up tomorrow morning. You're getting a lot of action up in Atlanta. Even though the severe weather threat's lower up in Atlanta, you're still getting a pretty nasty line of storms moving in right as you're waking up tomorrow morning. Heavy rain all the way up into the southern Alps. Strong winds associated with this. So we'll stop it right here because we're going to start it again. We're going to have a separate segment for the southeast. So let's continue to talk about the deep south. This is the significant tornado parameter. Now, if you see numbers like 10s and 11s, that doesn't mean there's a 10 out of 10 chance to see a tornado. The higher the number, the better ingredients in place for a tornado. So this is what we call the significant tornado parameter. And if you notice, there's a dramatic cutoff behind it and to the north of this. This is where the warm front is draping over. Anything south of the warm front and east of the cold front is our sector of ingredients for severe weather. So you got what we call the STP values and the 8s, the 9s down here. This begins to spike in southern Mississippi and southeast Louisiana, probably around 10 to 11 p.m. tonight. Really begins to get elevated after midnight in southern Alabama, the far western counties of the Panhandle of Florida. But you notice, it doesn't quite even make it up to Montgomery, Birmingham. It's all down here, but in this little area, it's very high. There's a STP rating of a 10 right in here. High-end ingredients for severe weather, and we take it all the way Tuesday morning. You notice it's not very north. It's not like you have this massive March-type severe weather setup across the deep south where you have this moist sector rising all the way up into southern Tennessee. It's just really confined down here, but it's going to be dangerous right down here. You compare this with the updraft helicity swath, which basically in this run of the HRRR model tries to pinpoint the best areas of rotation with these storms. And, it's confined to the Gulf coastline. Yeah, it does show rotation all the way up to like Meridian. But, and it is possible, but I think it's going to be the highest out in here. And you see all these kind of colors showing up here. This is where it's trying to indicate rotating updrafts in this area. And it takes us all the way to Tuesday morning. And it just likes that entire area where there is an enhanced risk right in here. And then we look at winds, folks. This is just right now. But we move through, all the way Tuesday morning. This is the HRRR model. In fact, let's look at the right thing here. Let's look at the National Weather Service. This is possible wind gust based off the National Weather Service. I mean, look up here, 45 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts in the southern Cumberland Plateau, northern Alabama, east Mississippi tonight. But, I mean, even if you don't get a severe thunderstorm and you get lucky down here along the Gulf Coast, you're going to get scattered 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. And, just in the northern Gulf of Mexico, it's going to be going in almost hurricane force winds. And then look at the Smokies, folks. I mean, I think you get an 85, 90 mile per hour wind gust in the Smokies. I mean, the winds are going to be ripping. And this starting to move into southwest Georgia, where you're going to have 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. Power outages in this area. There's just a lot going on. And rainfall, there's a weird cutoff right here. I think this is just where National Weather Services, two of them just disagree with one another. But, Alabama, good for anywhere from 2 to as much as 5 inches of rain. Same thing as southern Mississippi, southeast Louisiana. You guys are already getting a lot of rain right now. Georgia, a soaker is going to move in. And then you got the flash flood. You got the flood watches up here in upstate South Carolina, southwest North Carolina. We'll talk about that area here in a second. What about the southeast? This is the enhanced risk for tomorrow, starting tomorrow morning. And this is going to be popping off right off the dot, right off the bang. You're going to be starting the day off with severe weather. It's not one of those days where it's building up. You're going to be starting the day with severe weather, most likely in southeast Alabama, the panhandle of Florida, and probably in southern Georgia. So enhanced risk going all the way from the northern Outer Banks all the way almost to Orlando. I mean, all the way past Tallahassee. Just includes Jacksonville, north of Tampa, Macon, Georgia, Columbia, Augusta, Charleston, Savannah, Wilmington, Myrtle Beach. Yeah, includes a lot of people. Fayetteville. So what about the tornado threat with this? And folks, by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, this will probably look a little different. There's a good chance. We might have a moderate risk. Very well could. This yellow area right here, same thing. This is the tornado outlook. This yellow area right here is really for tomorrow morning. The reason there's a disconnect right here is because they think this line will weaken late tomorrow morning and then start to refire again in this area with prefrontal convection that they, question if it's actually going to form. And I think at least a little bit will. If they have confidence that this line isn't going to lose much steam, then you're probably going to get a connection between these two 10% areas. Not sure if that's going to happen or not. But regardless, it's the same situation what I just discussed with the Deep South. There's a 10% risk of a tornado in this area, and there's a 10% risk of a significant tornado. Same thing with this yellow area. This is including my neck of the woods, guys. And one thing I haven't really announced is I plan on taking off work tomorrow and chasing here in my local state in South Carolina. If you're new to the channel, you probably don't realize I'm actually a storm chaser too. I'm just not like Reed Timmer or somebody or some of these other guys out here that do it full time. I'm not able to quit my full-time job yet and do stuff like that. But I will be chasing locally here, so stay tuned for updates with that. But anyways, let's get back to the weather here. So this is a big deal. They've canceled school, I know, here in South Carolina. The wind threat is, just alone is going to be a big deal. This is a massive area in red. Everybody in the red, 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Then you got this massive hatched risk too, which means there's a 10% risk in this entire checkered area of winds exceeding 70 to 75 miles per hour with some of these storms. It's a big deal. It is. It's a big deal tomorrow also. So, rain is already going to be overspreading into Georgia, the southern Apps, into South Carolina after midnight tonight. It'll already be raining. You're waking up tomorrow morning. Rain is falling all the way up into North Carolina. We'll show more North Carolina here in a second. Heavy rain in Georgia, North Georgia. And then you start to get this clearing and kind of southern Georgia. Will the sun even peak out? I don't know. But, you're moving here in time, and these are some nasty storms working its way through the panhandle of Florida, starting to work its way into southwest Georgia. How much will they get their act together up here in the upstate of South Carolina? But I think regardless, winds will be howling up here. This is getting into 11 a.m. Eastern time. This line of storms just worked through Tallahassee, starting to get into North Florida. And this is where we stop it here. So let's finish this, and then I want to move up here, okay? But this line of storms continues to work through North Georgia and then southeast Georgia. There's going to be a tornado threat with this line of storms, all together. And then, you work your way down into Florida and what it could potentially look like for tomorrow. And here's the line of storms working in. I think as we're getting into tomorrow afternoon, Jacksonville will begin to experience with just one robust line of storms in Jacksonville, probably around 2 to 5 p.m. tomorrow. This is working its way down the Big Bend region and probably hits Tampa sometime late tomorrow afternoon, makes its way through the entire state of Florida tomorrow evening. The rest of the state gets south of Orlando and eventually tries to make it all the way down to Miami. All right, so what about up here in the Carolinas? So let's go on and fast forward here. We'll stop it here. So this is around 1 p.m. for my folks in the Carolinas. I know I got a lot of viewers in the Carolinas because this is where I started talking weather. You stop it right here. You got a pretty intense line of storms embedded in all this rain from, all the way to almost up to Roanoke, all the way down to Florida. All right, so, a lot of folks have asked, Mitch, what's the timing of this, for my locals in South Carolina? Well, the timing's everywhere because the winds are going to be whipping out ahead of this line. It's just when the actual line moves through, that's when your tornado threat's going to move through. That's when your strongest winds are going to move through. The big wild card with this is all this, I'm going to try drawing this, all this trying to develop ahead of the storm. I don't think this is going to clear out enough where you're actually going to get peaks of sunshine. If it does, man, that's not good. But I do think this is the area you watch for any sort of prefrontal, that's the front, main line of storms, for any sort of prefrontal storms to form. If they get going, that's where you could get strong tornadoes. And that's why they have a hatch risk in this area. But you keep this going, and right before the line comes up, and this is speeding up. This is already 2 p.m. The main line done moved through Columbia, through Charlotte. It's coming up on Savannah. But you see these storms right in here around Myrtle Beach, getting close to Wilmington. These are the storms that could produce tomorrow afternoon. Out ahead of this and along it, you have a roaring low-level jet. Winds will be howling in front of this line. And you keep this going, and there they are. All these storms right into here, they're all congealed together. So, one, they're going to be rain-wrapped. Two, they're probably going to be moving pretty quick because of this, interstate speed level, low-level jet just a mile above our heads. And this could sneak up on people. You're not going to really see these tornadoes very well because they're probably going to be rain-wrapped. The best you're going to get as far as storm structure is a semi-discrete supercell. You're not going to get probably some lone supercell hanging out by itself. If you do, you risk a high-end tornado. But, this is really going to congeal together, and this continues through eastern North Carolina, 6, 7 p.m. You're still going to have an ongoing tornado threat, I think, high wind threat in eastern North Carolina. And check out right behind this, snow begins to work in. And it just dawned on me that I did not pull a segment up for this snow. And in fact, we're going to probably do it after this. So we'll talk about that here in a second. The significant tornado threat parameter in this area, here it comes, rising up. And, we're getting into tomorrow morning. It's spiking down here. And then look at this area beginning to bubble up here just off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. So it kind of loses some intensity here in southeast Georgia. And then that's when it spikes again up here in areas of, let's see if we can pull this up here in the Carolinas. We're going to have to do this on the fly. Just bear with me here. And this is when it begins to rise up here, right as you get into around lunchtime. I know this isn't a high reading, but, you don't always focus so hard on that. But, look how high in the reading is just off the coast of South Carolina. But, I have a feeling that this could uptrend. But there's your tornado threat that really gets going from the Midlands points east into eastern North Carolina throughout the rest of the afternoon and evening. All right, and then you look at the updraft helicity swath, and there it is. It's really high tomorrow morning across southwest Georgia, the southeast Alabama, the panhandle of Florida. Then it kind of lulls out, and then it kind of shows it up here in South Carolina and North Carolina, but it's definitely not as high. But the updraft helicity swath does not always tell the story. I've seen it have a very, low signal for this, and there'll be tornadoes. I've seen it have a very high signal for it, and there not be hardly any tornadoes. But if you notice, look at these little areas right here along the coastal regions. There's even some swaths moving through central South Carolina. So we need to watch out for this for sure. And then the winds, folks, are going to be intense. Intense winds in these areas. This is, let's look at the National Weather Service forecast instead of the H-strip bar model. I don't even know why I had that pulled up. And here it is. This is predicted max wind gusts through this entire area, through the entire length of the event. This takes us all the way through about Tuesday night. Max wind gusts are calling for on the Outer Banks in eastern North Carolina, 60 to 70 miles per hour. High winds up here in the Smokies and the higher elevations of North Carolina and Tennessee. And I mean, even outside of the coastal regions and the mountainous regions, you got a swath of 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts that they're thinking across the Carolinas up to Virginia, Kentucky, and Georgia. What about rains in these areas? Let's talk about that. And rainfall, there's a closer look at that. A lot of rain. You could get 4 to 5 inches up against the foothills and just getting pushed, all this moisture getting pushed up against the western side of the mountains, which creates that lift, which is going to squeeze out all that moisture. So, this is how much rain's possible from this system. So the ingredients from this is no doubt maxed out as far as the low-level jet. Kinematic-wise, it's there. It's just the thermodynamic side of this. You got the higher dew points, but what about the instability? There's so much wind energy in the atmosphere that you see moving over Georgia and the Carolinas tomorrow in northern Florida that this is creating a ton of lift in the atmosphere. So therefore, storms are just firing at will out here. There's so much forcing in the atmosphere, so that's why you're not getting these supercells or anything. You never really see that in January anyways. But you see this is a 75, 85, 90 knots low-level jet riding over the Carolinas tomorrow afternoon. Winds will be howling because of this. So I want to do this on the fly, so y'all bear with me. But I don't want to leave this little event out at all. And I want to show this, and just bear with me if you don't mind. I want to show this for this back-end potential snow events behind this system. So as all this rigmarole is getting on out the way, look out this back-end moisture. And this is getting into tomorrow evening. So you start to get a little bit of cold air to work, Sam, and then you start to see widespread precipitation develop on the backside of this. And you start to get snow flying around. And rain switching to some snow tomorrow night. You see just the greens and the blues, Kentucky, southern Indiana. This could be kind of convective in nature too. Meaning you could get some burst of heavy snow. And, this is kind of something that is not being talked about much because there's so much going on. But, you get into about 10, 11 p.m., it's snowing pretty good in Kentucky. Down the Bowling Green, heavy snow begins to move into Lexington. Look down here in Nashville. Snow, Cumberland Plateau. Snow, northern Alabama. Snowing in northern Alabama. North Georgia, it's snowing. This is a pretty robust push of snow that not a lot of people are talking about behind this. So this is getting after midnight, Tuesday night, getting into Wednesday morning. Look at this area of snow that pulls in. What's the National Weather Service showing with this? Let's take a look at it. So as far as snowfall, I hadn't even looked at this yet, so this is going to be new to me. They ain't really biting on this much. Not much at all. Throws a half inch to an inch, maybe in areas of the Cumberland Plateau. Maybe just dusting amounts out here. So you kind of look at the blend of all models from this. It's a little bit more scattered about, but they're not buying much of it. So let's go up to the northeast of the storm system. We're waking up Tuesday morning. Tons of precipitation begins to move, and you're going to get a big front-end thumping of snow, the higher elevations of West Virginia, Western Maryland, and the higher terrain of PA up to State College. I think you'll get some massive heavy snowfall rates to really start your Tuesday in northern PA, the southern tier and Finger Lakes of New York, maybe even the Buffalo, maybe. Binghamton, I think. And then, it starts to snow really heavily up in Quebec and really southern Ontario is what I meant. But it's all rain for the I-95 corridor. It's a good old rain bomb. Delmarva, heavy wind-driven rain. You start to get into tomorrow evening. Interior, heavy snow to boot it off. Very heavy snow, maybe as far south as the Berkshires. Could start out with some snow in the Poconos, the Catskills, but quickly goes to rain. White Green Mountains of Vermont, New Hampshire, heavy snow Adirondacks, heavy snow right at first. Maybe for a several-hour period, and then you're going to get some extremely heavy snow up here in Maine. Could switch to all rain, but you stop it right here. I want to show you this. This is when, like, late tomorrow night, New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England could begin to experience power outages. You got this huge amount of rain falling. It's windy. It's probably blowing at 40 to 50 mile per hour winds in this area. And this is going to cause a lot of issues. You could have a big flash flooding risk in this region. And yeah, but you got a big old several hours at least of heavy wet snow to kind of late tomorrow night into Wednesday morning up here in Maine. And it could stay all snow for certain areas. Then you get some back end energy that flies through. And as we stop this, about midday Wednesday, you got just kind of back end energy just flying over the Great Lakes. Another round of moderate to heavy snow kind of flying through northeast Ohio, western PA, western New York, northern West Virginia. So how much snow from this? I mean, they're going for a good 8 to 15 inch snowfall, maybe even more. Somebody get 2 feet of snow in areas of Vermont. A lot of snow in the Adirondacks before you switch to rain, 8 to 12 inches of snow. So, you're starting to add it up here, but you're going to switch the rain for most of these areas. What about just precipitation in general? A quick, heavy 2 to 5 inch rainfall, pretty much everybody along the I-95 corridor. A lot of heavy rain in these areas. And the winds, folks, this is predicted max wind gust for the Northeast up against, coming off Erie and Ontario, folks. You're going to get hurricane force winds. They got high wind warnings. Someone's probably going to get a 70, 75 mile per hour wind gust. Heavy, very strong winds, for the mountains of basically the Appalachian Mountains of the interior Northeast. And up against the coastal regions of Jersey Shore, 60, 65 mile per hour wind gusts is possible. Delmarva, very strong winds. And then, of course, out on Cape Cod, you're probably going to get at least a 70 mile per hour wind gust, I'd bet. Coastal regions of Maine, down east areas of Maine, a big windstorm from this, a big-time kind of nor'eastern kind of event. Strong winds in all the mountainous regions especially. There's going to be scattered power outages for sure. Up here in Canada, I want to show you folks some love. I think Nova Scotia, I think New Brunswick will get a big-time winter storm starting Wednesday morning. But I even think eventually as you're getting into, Wednesday night, even you guys are going to switch to rain. Heavy snow begins to move in Wednesday night and the Thursday morning for Newfoundland. And then it kind of just dissipates and heads on out into the North Atlantic after that. Winds from this is going to be, pretty strong. I know y'all go off kilometers per hour, but, you got areas anywhere from 80 to 120 kilometers per hour throughout Nova Scotia. New Brunswick, it's going to be the strongest in the southern sections of the areas. And I think that probably I would favor northwest and western sections of Newfoundland for the strongest winds. And the southern coast could certainly get some very strong winds. But in between Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, very strong winds in this area for sure. What about the storm coming up after this? The Euro doesn't really think that this is going to be a big storm for the central portion of the country. You start off Friday morning, heavy snow flying in northern Missouri, central Illinois. But, the Euro says this is not going to be a huge event for late week. At least the winter weather side of this. That could change. You got some snow on the back end of this all the way down to northwest Arkansas, light snow back into Missouri. But, even this stays mainly rain for St. Louis. But could get another several inches of snow in Chicago from this based off the Euro. And this could turn to a substantial winter storm maybe for you folks in the Great Lakes region as this heads on out. What about the Euro? Was the Euro show for this? We'll back it up a little bit. Let's see. Here it is. Let's back it up right here. It's much further north. It's a totally different kind of look, honestly. Brings much heavier snow a little bit further north. But then it kind of adjusts to the Euro. We're getting into Friday evening, and the GFS is a much more substantial winter storm, especially further west. This would bring heavy snow into St. Louis, developing heavy snow into Kansas City, but pulling out a big-time winter storm for central Illinois and even, Indiana initially. Heavy snow up into Chicago, even Milwaukee again. And then where does this low go? It's a 976 millibar low, so another powerful cyclone. But this could bring blizzard conditions to the Great Lakes region if something like that happened, no doubt. I mean, this would be a very powerful low Friday night and Saturday morning heading away. And then we got things after that too. What about the eastern U.S. with this? Here it comes. The European shows a pretty decent winter storm, again, for the Great Lakes region. Kind of a similar setup with a storm that moves in a couple days previously. It starts out as snow in southern Ontario, even Detroit, Cleveland, Erie, but then switches to rain because the low basically plows right over Lake Erie. And then just another rain-driven event. I mean, it's like deja vu. this coming Friday night and Saturday for the Northeast. It's wild. It comes in a couple days later. It stays all snow in Michigan. Wraparound snow could be heavy. Could have another event where snow reaches all the way down to Tennessee behind this low. Going to be another big-time winter weather event for the interior Northeast. And then I think we could have a substantial lake effect snow event behind this as some Arctic air begins to filter in. What about the GFS from this? It's a little bit further south initially. This would be a big winter storm for the northern Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes region. Heavy snow and heavy winter weather moving into Pennsylvania, New York. This wants to throw some snow all the way into southern New England as we're getting into Saturday morning. But you got a 976 millibar low over Indiana. This could be a blizzard. Not saying it is. I know people, when I say that, they say that I'm saying that's what's going to happen. But this will be a substantial winter storm for, these areas in Canada, Quebec, Ontario, and you keep going. And then winter weather switches to rain in southern New England. Could stay all winter weather, though. All-out winter storm this weekend for Maine. And then there goes the lake effect snow behind this. I'm going to get a lot more detailed with this, folks, once we get past the storm that's right in front of us and going on. But, the European ensemble look for snow. There's that signal that explodes. This is in 24-hour increments here. This is for Friday evening. You got a good 2 to as much as 6-inch snowfall across the Midwest and even northern sections of the Ohio Valley, but it really maximizes right into here over the Great Lakes region, northern Indiana, southern Michigan. Even Chicago has almost an 8-inch snowfall mean, and then this really gets high into southern Ontario. And then we look at the Northeast from this, and here it comes. It's a pretty high signal into the interior sections of the Northeast for another kind of heavy winter weather change in the rain kind of event in these areas. And there's going to be a severe weather side to this, folks. This is Thursday. This isn't a week away. It's coming Thursday. And I laugh not because I'm happy severe weather is going to happen, but it's just overwhelming, the information overload that we have going on. But there's a 15% risk of severe weather coming up for eastern Texas, Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and then western Mississippi. We just know that there's a 15% risk of severe weather. This is basically a level 2 out of 5 risk at day 4. And then we go to day 5, folks, and look at this. Deja vu. Severe weather, maybe a little bit further north. But it's got an outlook all the way from Jackson, Mississippi, all the way to Raleigh, North Carolina, even a small section of southern Virginia. A 15% risk of severe weather for a Friday. So we're going to do it all over again Friday. I don't know how intense it's going to be. What we do know is it's kind of a similar setup. You got this powerful trough digging down. This begins to eject, get strong, and cut across the country. And you're looking at the ingredients for Thursday evening. And look, the exit region right here of this mid-level jets right in here, creating a lot of forcing, a lot of kinematics for severe weather. And then this moves into our Friday, and it's the same thing. A ton of kinematics. This is winds aloft. You got over 100 knot mid-level jet, 80 and 90 knot mid-level jet. You got a lot of wind energy across the deep south and the southeast, riding over this region. You combine that with the moisture levels, and it looks like it looks like a further north moist sector than what we're seeing with this event moving in. And there it is, dew points rising into the 60s once again, all the way into Houston, Shreveport, all the way through the Bayou, Louisiana. Here it is. Look at this sector. This looks more rich moisture, and it looks like it's further north. And then look, we're getting into Friday afternoon. Here's these dew points rising all the way into the 60s, 70s in Florida, 60s in Georgia, 60s in South Carolina, all in the North Carolina. It's like deja vu. This is exactly how the system tomorrow is going to unfold across Georgia and the Carolinas. And, you check that off as an ingredient for severe weather. To wrap all this up, there's another storm behind this, folks. And we don't have really a snowfall signal from this. All we can do is show you some model guidance. And here's the Euro. The Euro, as we're getting as early as Sunday evening, develops this massive swath of snow across Kansas, eastern Colorado to Kansas, northern Oklahoma, and then develops this winter storm in eastern Oklahoma. It develops freezing rain across the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the northern sections of Texas, all the way down here to southern Arkansas. Ice storm develops, and it develops a major winter storm with Arctic air diving down. You got freezing rain. It's like deja vu from like the last 2 winters all the way down into central Kansas with more freezing rain. This is not a forecast. We're still like almost a week out, but we're really inside a week now. I think we're in a comfortable period where we can start comparing model guidance at this point. Look at this heavy snow falling in northern Arkansas, ice in the southern portion of the state, ice in northern Louisiana, ice getting into sections of northwest Mississippi. This would deliver a big winter storm for Memphis, Little Rock, up to Paducah, Kentucky, Shreveport. I mean, you got snow falling almost all the way to Houston, folks, Monday afternoon. And there's that low, but unfortunately for my folks in Georgia, the Carolinas, this thing is already cutting. And this is a classic rain changing to heavy snow across the deep south as it heads on out. What does the GFS show with this storm? Here it comes. Comes in a little bit later. Not much, though. Develops heavy snow across Missouri, Kansas more so, northern sections of Arkansas. It's a little bit further north. Dives in that cold air. You got freezing rain still all the way down into eastern Texas, freezing rain in the southern sections of Arkansas, snow in the Boot Hill, Missouri, northern Arkansas. And then a winter storm begins to develop and get going across areas of the western deep south and mid-south. And then look at this. This continues to chuck southeast, and you got winter weather flying. The orange is sleet. If you don't know, the pink is freezing rain. But you get into Monday evening, and you got a winter weather event. Is this a forecast? Absolutely not. Is this a solid signal for a winter storm? Absolutely yes. That's all we can really say. European, just kind of another look at this. This would bring snow all the way into Ohio. Kentucky, big time snow event from this, but it cuts and delivers once again, me included, my folks into up the I-95 corridor, nothing but rain again, because the problem is, I've seen this question a lot, is these storms are getting too strong too fast, and that makes the storm gain latitude. So these storms dig down, they get really strong, and then they immediately cut. So that's what's going on. That's why these storms are cutting so fast. We have to get this solid push of cold air further southeast before we can start getting winter weather chances south and east of the Alps, the Appalachian Mountains. But this delivers a big winter storm, another interior, in mid-Atlantic interior northeast winter storm as we get into early next week. What about the GFS for these regions? Here it comes. Now this is a little bit different. Keeps things a little bit further south. It looks like it's about to do something. You got Arctic air coming down. You got moisture, more moisture building out the Gulf. And it gets right up against the Appalachian Mountains. You got snow falling in eastern Tennessee. You got ice. Don't focus too much on all that. But, I mean, you got freezing rain showing up all the way down here, almost the Gulf of Mexico. And you basically got this strung out overrunning event. You got snow falling across southern New England. You got cold air moving in. You think, man, this is about to do something. And then we run out of moisture. And then we just get cold air. Not a forecast, guys. Not a forecast at all. Keep this run going. I hadn't even looked at the rest of the run. And it's nothing interesting whatsoever. So the Arctic air is coming, no doubt. This is temperatures in that bright purple white color. That's anywhere from 25 to 35 degrees below average. This digs down into the middle of the country Saturday afternoon. This weekend, basically, in the middle of the country, it's going to feel like the Arctic Circle down here. Very, very cold temperatures. This continues to ooze south, but how far south do you get it? The coldest temperatures are acting like they want to stay kind of over this area. But eventually, this does ooze into the eastern U.S., and all model guidance shows it doing so. But what kind of energy are you going to have around? That's the big question. And this kind of lasts for a while, and you get a persistent colder pattern basically for the foreseeable future in this area. And then maybe it begins to moderate as you get on down the road. But, I mean, that's so far out, it's really no use in looking at. Possible low temperatures from the blend of all models. Friday morning, you're starting to get below freezing. Below zero. You get into, Monday, you're starting to get below zero amounts. And when you're going to have snowpack in this area too, well below zero amounts here. Temperatures in here from Nebraska points north, Missouri points north, Illinois points north. Single digits all the way to Oklahoma, North Texas. It's just getting very cold, guys. I mean, the blend of all models has it getting down to the single digits as far south as northern Mississippi and northern Alabama. So below zero amounts, you're basically locking into just a winter type pattern. Now, this is well below average, but I mean, you typically see something like this almost every winter. And here comes the Arctic dropping down. And, the Climate Prediction Center shows this well. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, the 14th to the 18th, well below average temperatures anchored right over the middle of the country. And then you look at the 16th to the 22nd outlook, well below average temperatures. The chances are a little bit less just because it's further out, but they're moving into the eastern U.S. at this point. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Stay safe out there, folks. Stay safe out there, and I'll give you another update in the morning. God bless.